did you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today I'm going to be showing you the update for the newer player DK. And this has been on my channel for some time. It's had an update every single patch, and this patch is no different. Of course, it's an update for this build as it has helped a lot of people in the past. Now I know there's a lot of methods out there, or one particular method if you like, to burn the crap out of Maelstrom and most content, but not everybody has access to that stuff. Not everybody is that experienced either, so you've got to start somewhere. And this is where I would suggest you start on the Dragonknight. Now of course it is based around what I'm going to show you is 660 CP, because that's what I have, but you can bring this down a bit if you have a lot less CPs and just even your champion points out accordingly based on what you've got. The gear is generally quite easy to get. Some of it's solo, some of it's small group content, some of it's craftable, but I'm going to go over all that and hopefully this will help. This is a balance of sustained damage and survivability all at once, rather than the typical glass cannons where people will die to one-shots every 5 seconds. Anyway, we'll look at the stats first of all. Pop the potion. 20.7k health, which is awesome, especially for a newer Dragonknight, because these are squishy and that will help you survive a lot. This is race based as well as the gear, so it's quite important. 39, almost 40k stamina, which is quite high to say the least. I think we need to buff that. Minor brutality as well. 3800 weapon damage, which can go up a bit with the weapon glyph that we've got on our weapons, and 65% crit. Resist is so-so, but I mean you can put a resist buff on if you're not happy with it, but we'll go over that. 842 recovery, which isn't much, but we can change that again also. 64 points into stamina. Stage 4 vampire, always a stage 4 vampire, simply for stage 4 is for this, so you can sneak around. But the rest is very important in the passive, which I will go over. And of course, the Thief Mundus Stone. What do you want? Hi Bears. Where are we? We'll firstly go over the... Do we go over the gear first? No, we'll go over the skills first. So we'll go over the gear second, because this is quite important. Now, if you're already familiar with all the Dragonknight skills, then this video clearly is not for you before we even start. But if you are interested in running this kind of setup or starting out as a Dragonknight, especially in Maelstrom, this is probably going to help you, so I would advise you don't skip it. So, Venomous Claw, single target damage over time. This is very, very strong. I'll go over to the skeleton and just show you exactly what it does. Very simple. You apply it like this. You have to be quite close to it, and it does damage over time every 2 seconds. However, you'll see that the damage is going up, unless it's not a crit, which it should be. We've got 2 procs there, I'll get to that in a second. Basically, it goes up by 12% every 2 seconds. So you need to run the full duration of this damage over time ability. Don't do this. Where's my buttons? Don't spam it on repeat, because that's not going to help you at all. You're just lowering your DPS. Okay, next is Rearm and Trap. This is very, very important. Not only does it stun some enemies, not all, doesn't stun bosses, but when it arms and opens up, it does a serious amount of physical damage as a single target dot goes for 6 seconds. It's quite nice. And while it's active, it gives you a buff, minor force in fact, which increases all of the crit damage that you do by 10%. So it's very, very important. Any crit damage that you do is buffed. But it doesn't just go once, it fires off here. And then 6 seconds afterwards, you can see the timer on above the skeleton. Watch it, watch it. Pops again. So you have 12 seconds of that buff. Keep that up, very, very strong. And yes, it does work on bosses. I know a lot of people scream about it saying it doesn't work. You're wrong, it does work. It doesn't stun them, but the buff is still applied and so is the damage. Very, very important. Also, a little bit of tactical play, especially in Maelstrom. Watch this. It rearms, okay? So fires once, pops again afterwards, but when that fires, I could put another one over here, and that can pop and rearm as well, and so can another after that one's fired, and so on and so forth. So you can place them in certain areas once the one you just put down is activated. Viper, no, not Viper. No. Got distracted there. Flames of Oblivion. This is very important. First of all, this one gives us Major Prophecy and Major Savagery. Major Savagery is important to us, Major Prophecy is not. However, we keep this on our bar to give us that buff all the time. Then, if you activate this for 15 seconds, once every 5 seconds, it will launch a fireball at the nearest enemy target. if you are aggroed by it or if it is aggressive. This flame damage actually scales off of your max stats. Ours being stamina, so this scales off of that. Very simple, activate it, it won't hit anything. But if you hit this, it will fire once every 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, fire. There you go. Next, Bloodthirst. This is an alternate morph of Flurry. Most people use Rapid Strikes, but we use this because it heals us at the end of the last hit. So this is very important. As long as that hit, the last one, connects, you will heal off of it. Really, really important. Now, you don't have to use this all the time. You don't have to over spam it, although on bosses it's quite handy. This is kind of your gap filler for your rotations if you ever want to use it. And above all, it is to keep you alive. So while you're doing this, every single last hit will heal you. That stacked alongside your own heal is pretty strong. Use it in important situations where you're taking a lot of dot damage. You will be fine. But I'll show you how to use that effectively or efficiently later. Blood Craze, same again. Very much applied the same way as this. Single target dot. Decent physical damage, but it's a bleed, so it goes straight through resists. Doesn't get progressively stronger, but it ignores resists, so it's really, really strong. And for each 2-second tick that you do damage, you heal for quite a bit actually. 1.1k there, but you can heal for about 2.5 almost if all your buffs on. Every 2 seconds. Really strong, so stack those two together. And make sure your Beast Trap is on, but we'll get to rotations in a bit. Dawnbreaker, Flawless Dawnbreaker. This is used for 2 reasons. One, for the extra weapon damage that this gives us. 5% for slotting it, and then some more later in the passives. There's a decent amount of frontal area effect damage over 5 seconds plus initial burst, but we don't use this strictly for damage. We do if we're really, really low on resources and we're about to die, or if the boss is about to die and you've only got enough to fire off one of these. That's when you use it. It's no shit button. But primarily we use our back bar ultimate. Now, this one here, not Venomous Claw, catch up. Vigor, Resolve and Vigor, you get this from Cyrodiil. You need to go into PvP for about 4 hours, Zerg surfing alongside a massive group of people. Just follow them and just whore on kills. Just hit people with light attacks. Whatever you want to do, join in. 4 hours worth of that at least, or at most actually. You should have Vigor unlocked, and then you can morph it into Resolving Vigor. Fire it off like this. 5-second heal for you and people around you. If you see Baz here, Baz gets a heal as well. Awesome. Very, very important. This is very, very important. It does damage over time and deals up to 160% more damage to enemies under 50% health. So the lower their health is, the more damage you do. So it's very, very strong. But it's also a very, very strong poison dot as well. So you need to make sure this is on the target at all times. Don't know if you've kept up with this so far, but this is poison. So is this. And now the next one is as well. Noxus Breath, this is an area of effect flame ability, which is converted to poison because you are using the stamina morph. This actually applies Major Fracture, reducing their physical resistance by 5280, which is the same debuff as a tank's Taunt, meaning you will do more damage to that target, or any targets caught in it. Very simple, 10-second damage over time to everyone caught in that, and Major Fracture to them all. Very, very important. This one, very simple. Falcon's glorified out. Molten Armaments. Now, you apply this, and there are some passives to go with it, which I'll get to, and your heavy attacks will be increased by 40% in damage. Very, very strong. This does give you Major Sorcery, but we don't use that anyway, so you can just give it to your group instead, because it affects 6 people. So while that's active, you can see the buff timer down there, the orange one. 39 seconds worth of 40% for any of this, and any of this. Although that wasn't a crit, so it was a bit poop. Now, finally, Endless Hail. This is disgusting. Very, very simple. Place it on the ground. 10 seconds worth of damage to everything in here. But, unlike most damage over times where they tick for 1 second or 2 seconds, mostly 2 seconds, but some are for 1, this is every half a second. So the damage on this is very, very high, and it is applied very, very fast. So a rapid damage over time in a small area of effect. Finally, Corrosive Armor. This is really, really important, especially for us in Maelstrom if we haven't been in there before, or much, or need some practice in there, whichever. If you're farming for those weapons, this ability is essential, especially to this particular build. Now, the banner. Yes, the banner is absolutely insane. I would recommend that everybody uses this because it is too powerful not to use. 17 seconds worth of flame damage, and everyone inside of there gets it. Alongside that, if you're inside of it, of course, which you should be, you take less damage, 15% less damage the whole time it's active. The target has 30% reduction to healing received, which is meh, depends on the target you're up against. And all of your damage is increased by 15%. Every single thing you do is increased, whether it's already active or whether you reapply it during the standard, will all do 15% extra damage. So it's really, really strong, including the flame dot that actually comes with it. However, with this particular build, and I will get to the gear, if you've seen it before, you already know where I'm going with this. This is awesome. It actually ends up doing about the same damage, in fact a little bit more sometimes on some of the DPS tests I've had to try and test it out. But this is a massive oh shit button. All damage that is incoming to you while this is active will do a maximum of 3% of your max health. We have a lot of health, so if we get hit by a 20k one shot, it's not going to kill us. It's actually going to only do 3% damage. So this is your basically immortal button. Let me build up some ultimate here so I can use it. While it is active, all of your abilities go straight through physical resistances. They completely ignore it. Whatever target you're up against has done 0 resist for 10.8 seconds. You can't be hit for much more than 3% of your max health per hit for 10.8 seconds. And you deal a decent amount of poison damage in area of effect to nearby enemies. And this is very important to the build. Like I said, this is poison, this is poison, this is poison, this is poison. And you can see the weapons glowing there. That is also poison. Really, really important. Now, have I got enough ulti to fire this off? Here we go. Coat you in loads and loads of poison, and all the damage you do goes straight through the target's resist. Nothing can protect him anymore. It's very, very strong. Like I said though, DPS tests from other builds for DKs that I have, the banner always overperforms in comparison with this. But for this particular build, the way it's set up, this is very, very strong and a huge lifesaver. Not only that, it's a decent amount of ultimate cost as well, so it's not quite as much as the banner, not quite as cheap as the Dawnbreaker, so you can balance your resources really well with it. But we're now going to get to those passives and you're going to see why it's so important. This one, of course, Ardent Flame. Get all of these. They contribute to your poison and flame status effects, so it has increased damage to those, increases the damage of your Ardent Flame abilities, like these, for example, Venom Claw, Noxus Breath, Flames of Oblivion. They're all buffed by these bonuses here. So you can go through them in your own time if you want, but make sure you get every single one of these. It's very, very important. This one, you can slot this if you want. I mean, you can replace maybe one of your skills on here if you're comfortable, but that's entirely to you where you put it. But this you can use if you are struggling with resistances. But we're not using it. You can use it if you want. In fact, you can replace Flames of Oblivion with it if you really feel like it. This is important. All these passives here, make sure you get them. Spell resistance, really important. DKs have a high amount of spell resistance. You need that. Reduction to damage when you block. And then these two are only situational, really, when you have a buff running from this skill line. For example, this. But we're not using it. So if you're not using the resist buff, don't bother getting these two. But the top and bottom one are very important. Finally, Earth and Heart. These are crucial. While you are leveling up your Dragonknight, make sure that you have at least 2 abilities, maybe more if you like, of Earth and Heart on your bar while you're gaining XP, because you really need this skill line to hit level 50 as soon as possible. Increases the duration of Earth and Heart abilities by 20%, meaning this here, Molten Armament, and this last longer. Very, very important. Then, Battle Roar. When you cast an ultimate ability, you restore 46 health, magicka, and stamina for each ultimate point cost. This here, why I said it was our shit button, costs 125, so we get a decent amount of resources back. 46 of everything for every 1 point of the ultimate. But this is more expensive, so we get more back with this, plus we're almost immortal when it's active. So if you're low on resources, or you just want to do a decent amount of damage, whatever, pop this, you're almost immortal, you do loads of damage, and you get your resources back. So that's how you sustain as a DK. You need to use your ultimates as much as possible and as efficiently as possible to keep up your resources. Here is also very important. Casting an Earth and Heart ability grants you minor brutality to you and your group, giving you 5% increased weapon damage for 20 seconds. Also, if you're in combat, you will gain 3 ultimate every 6 seconds for using an ability of this kind every 6 seconds. Now how this works is here. This has now increased my weapon damage by 5% for 20 seconds. If you look at the end buff on the right hand side, that's minor brutality. Now what you need to do, I know this buff lasts 40 seconds almost, but you need to keep it up every 20 seconds if you can. Cast it again, it reapplies. Now of course Molten Armaments doesn't need to be spammed, but if you can keep it up every 20 seconds you can have almost 100% uptime on minor brutality, keeping your damage up. Very, very important. And of course Molten Armaments needs to stay on because you get extra ultimate every time you cast it, and it increases your heavy attack damage. Now this is also very, very important to the Earth and Heart skill line. Helping Hands, 990 stamina every time you use an Earth and Heart ability. So every time you do cast this wastes some stamina. You don't get stamina back when you block. Cast an Earth and Heart ability, you get stamina back. Really important. So just pressing that ability, let's get some magic back. Come on. Gives you stamina back, gives you minor brutality, gives you molten armaments, which is 40% extra heavy attack damage, and of course it gives you ultimate. So very, very important skill line. These are very important passives. Get every single one of them. Now, dual wield, really important stuff. Get every single one of these. They contribute a stupid amount to your damage. If you're wondering why we're using one axe and one dagger, it is because of twin blade and blunt. 8% chance per axe to bleed on the enemy. Now if you're not familiar with it, bleed goes through resistances, it ignores them. So you want to get that extra dot every so often for free. It's really, really nice. As long as you will light attack or heavy attack weaving or whatever, you will get this to happen. Then of course the dagger increases your crit by just over 1,000 for having a dagger as well. So we take 2 passives from this skill line. Here, 2 passive bonuses, sorry, from this here. All the rest of them, make sure you get them. They increase everything you're doing. Get them all. And of course this is very important. It increases the damage of dual wield abilities by 20% against enemies under 25% health. That includes your light and heavy attacks. If you heavy attack someone under 25% health with molten armaments on, and it's a Maelstrom target for example, if it's not a boss it's dead. Bow, very important. We've already gone over the skills. I won't go over these too much because you can go through them in your own time, but these all benefit your crit, your reduction to cost, your damage overall, and of course this is very, very important. If you dodge roll, you gain major expedition for 5 seconds, increasing your run speed by 30%. This will help you get out of trouble. Very, very nice. Don't over spam it because you'll run out of resources, but when you need to, you can use it, especially on the last boss when you have to run from crystal to crystal, or you need to get behind the rock wall to survive. You'll see that when you get there. Light armor, you don't really need to have any in here if you don't want to, but I honestly would encourage you to get the base ones. Not anything that requires 5 pieces, but the base ones, just because we are wearing 1 light, so we do get these tiny passives that do benefit us. Up to you, but I would get them. Medium, get everything. It increases your crit, your recovery, reduction to cost, and your damage, of course, 12% extra damage. These are essential. Get every single one of them. We're using 5 medium. Heavy armor, decent amount of resists. This one isn't hugely essential, but it does help a little bit on occasion, so make sure you get these if you've got the points to spare. But above all, you must have this one here, Juggernaut. Increases your max health by a further 2% per heavy armor piece worn. We are actually wearing 1, so we'll take that health bonus. Thank you very much. What else have we got? Vampire, this is very, very important. Increases your magicka and stamina recovery by 10% for being stage 2 or higher, and reduces the damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health while under 50%. So the lower you are under 50%, the less damage you take, making you a little bit tanky. So very, very nice indeed. I go stage 4 all the time just because it's too much hassle to keep changing it. And most fire, of course, yes, you do take more fire damage as a vampire. Most fire is on the ground or is aimed at you, so you can actually avoid it. So get into the habit of staying out of the red stuff, and vampire won't be a problem for you. Not only to mention, of course, that if you do go low health from fire, you still take a reduction to damage anyway. Really important stuff. Fighters Guild passives, get these. Intimidating Presence, first of all, reduces your Fighters Guild abilities by 15%. This we are using all the time. Reduce the cost, it makes sense. Increases your weapon damage by 3%, sorry, for each Fighters Guild ability slotted. This is one right here, giving us 3%. I know this gives us 5% to start with, but this gives us a further 3% for being on our bar as well. So this actually gives us 8. Very, very nice. Make sure you get this. 9 ultimate every time you kill an undead, daedra or werewolf. You will be doing that a lot. Get those. Very important passives. These 3 above all. Although you do have this as well. Your fighter's guild abilities deal additional 20% damage to undead, daedra and werewolves. So if any undead, daedra or werewolves get hit by your Dawnbreaker or by your rearming trap, they will take additional damage. Mage's guild, don't worry about it. Undaunted, essential stuff. Make sure you get this. You take a synergy. If you're in a group, you'll get back 4% of all 3 resources. Take synergies. This one, 6% bonus to all 3 resources, magicka, stamina and health, because we are wearing 3 types of armor. Light, medium and heavy. That's 3 types, 2% for each, 6% across the board. You don't need any of those. We are Imperial on purpose. I would highly recommend Imperial. Failing that, if you can't get Imperial, maybe you don't have it, maybe you don't want to buy it, I would highly recommend something like an Orc or a Nord, so that you get the extra health bonus for being one of those races. Now, yes, so they do have less stamina than the Imperial, but they will have a decent amount of health, so you can survive a little bit more in this kind of setup. Now, Nords, I know people sneeze at those and go, you can't go DPS. Yes, you can. They have 6% max stamina. That's absolutely fine, and they have a little reduction to damage as well, plus 9% max health. Now, if you were to go perhaps Orc, you would have also 6% max health, 6% max stamina again, but 4% melee damage and faster run speed. So that's also a good balance. But personally, I prefer Imperial. If you can get it, I highly recommend it, because you get these bonuses. 12% increase max health, 10% max stamina. That's the highest stamina bonus in the game, alongside the Red Guard, which is identical. The only difference is the Red Guard has a tiny bit more sustain, a decent amount more sustain, I guess, but no health bonus. And instead of our sustain, what I mean by that is they get stamina back from light or heavy attacks every few seconds. We don't get that. Instead, we have a 10% chance every time we do melee attack to get 6% of our max health back. Of course, the more health you have, the more sense that makes. But our sustain is not a problem, because we're doing heavy attacks all the time, and I'm going to show you how to fix any sustain issues that you may have with certain options in the setup. I think that's it for the skills. Apart from this, this is the most essential skill in the game as far as I'm concerned. This increases your duration of your potions by 30%. I also have a video for alchemy on my channel, by the way. It will show you how to get alchemy to max in 15 minutes flat. It's not necessarily so that you can craft potions, it's so that you can max it and get this. So just pump all your skill points into here, get it to max, dump them all again, and just put 3 into here, and you're good. What that will do is crafted potions with recovery or duration based stuff, if it's just beneficial to your resources, generally lasts 47.6 seconds if you have that passive, instead of around 35. Cooldown is 45 seconds, which means we can have 100% uptime on our buffs from our potions. So that passive is very, very important. I think that's it for the skills. Now we're going to go to the gear. This is why everything is the way it is. Swamp Raiders Axe. Now this one is actually from a boss. We're using 5-piece Swamp Raiders to start with. I'll go over what we're using and then I'll explain what they are. So 5-piece Swamp Raiders, 5-piece Hunter's Rage, 2-piece Falcon Scoria. Don't laugh, this is very strong. This weapon is actually from a boss. It's a unique item and it comes from here. And it comes in Sharpened straight away. Yes, I know people complained that Sharpened got nerfed, but if you did the maths, you would realize that we were over penetrating like hell for God knows how long, and now the actual reduction to Sharpened makes us just about hit 0 if we balance our CPs and gear properly inside dungeons and trial situations, so it's absolutely fine. It was too powerful in the past to the point where we were actually going over 0, which does nothing for us. This is the boss that drops that axe, and then you have the dagger, which is also sharpened with a poison enchant. This has a weapon and spell damage enchant. This has a poison enchant. You have to craft this enchant and put it onto it, I believe. I don't think it comes as that, but that comes from a little quest line down here somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it is. I think it's here. Could be wrong. Might be here. Where's the ships? No, it's here, where the ships are. This is where the quest line is. It's around here. I will link it in the description, but the dagger comes from the quest. So you don't have to go and buy all shiny items. You can just farm the boss and do the quest. Easy, perfect trait weapons for this particular setup. On the back bar, it's a sharpened bow. Yeah, I know, it's purple. There's no point in me golding that out. With a crusher on it. Any bow will work. You can use whatever you want. The reason it's a random one, or crafted, you can get a crafted one, is because then you can replace it with a Maelstrom weapon at the end if you're lucky enough to get one. Once you do, definitely swap that out. In the meantime, if you really want to optimize it for the sake of using it long term and you're not going in Maelstrom for a while, you can use this or the dagger. One of these can be crafted as Hundin's Rage instead, as can this bow. That way you'll always have 5 on this bar, and then you will have Hundin's on the back bar all the time as well, and you'll benefit from all that shiny. Basically, you'll have 500 on the back with 4 Swamp Raider and 500 on the front with 5 Swamp Raider. That's what you can do. So have it as this with a random one, or one of those, 1 Hundin's and Hundin's here, and you'll be just fine. That will mean that you'll have to swap out maybe one of the pieces for Swamp Raider though. Anyway, for this particular setup, sharpened axe, sharpened dagger, sharpened bow, Falcon Scoria helmet, Falcon Scoria shoulders, Hundin's Rage chest in heavy, Hundin's Rage belt in light, and everything else Hundin's Rage in medium. Now these are divines on the small pieces, legs, hands and belt and shoulders, and infused on the legs, chest, and supposed to be the helmet, but it's the wrong trait, so never mind. This comes from City of Ash 2 on Veteran. It's pretty rough if you haven't been in there before, but if you get a group together that are capable or willing to follow mechanics and work together, you'll be able to get it. This comes from Glirion's chest in the Undaunted area, depending on where your Undaunted area is, depending on your alliance of course, but that comes from there with daily Undaunted pledge keys. Now there are some other options for this which I will go over, but this basically, I'll show you exactly what it does. Gives you max health for a start, which we need because we want to be tanky so we don't die all the time. Damage over time abilities make this proc. Come on, fire. There you go. Boom. That happens once every 5 seconds, if you're lucky, based on 8% proc chance. Now this, fire again. There you go. It's still going. Every single thing we do is damage over time. Meaning every single tick of every single dot has an 8% chance to proc that. So it's almost guaranteed. In fact, it pretty much is. So once you stack stuff like this, and this, and this, and this, beast traps at dot 2, so is this, so is this, it's going to keep firing all the time. So let's just keep some of these up a minute. It's going to fire again. Constant, constant. 3, 2, 1, should fire again. Don't let me down. There it goes. Boom. It stays all the time. It's very, very nice. Tiny cooldown, decent damage. And of course it's flame damage, which we benefit from because we're a DK. So we get a little bit of a boost there, whereas other stamina classes do not. It is based off of max magic essentially, but because we have flame damage and it has a flat value as well, we do benefit from that. So it's very, very nice. Single target hit plus AoE when it lands. Hundin's Rage, I'll get to in a second. Swamp Raider basically does this. Crit, damage, stamina. Oh, it's crit chance, by the way, if you weren't familiar with that. And when you use a magic ability that does damage, your poison and disease abilities gain an additional 440 weapon damage for 10 seconds. Now, this is poison. This is poison. This is poison. And so is our ultimate. And so is our dagger proc. You can see he's poisoned to hell. And so is the status effect that the DK gets. Well, it's not just the DK, everybody gets it, but we get a bonus to how often it procs, but it's the status effect of poison as well. I don't know if I can make it proc. It's quite hard sometimes to get it to activate. There you go. You see the skull on the buff timer at the top? That is a poison status effect. Basically, that applies an additional dot. Now, all of those are buffed by this set, but you need to proc it, and the way you need to proc it is to do damage with a magic ability. So we use this. Now look in the buff timer and look at my hands. You'll see 2 crossed poison swords and my hands are glowing green. This is a stamina bonus ability as such. It affects us for using our stamina and weapon damage abilities because it gives us major savagery and the flame scales off of our max stamina. Even though we use magicka to cast it, it is affected by our flat stats. So because it does damage with magic, that will always proc. Come on, 2, 1, fire. Now that will stay up. The bonus is 10 seconds long. The flame fires every 5 seconds for 15. So as long as we keep up our rotations, that will never ever fade. So we always have additional poison damage all the time. You've got to keep this active though. If you switch this for a resist buff, by the way, this one here, this does also still work. But you need to be a bit tactical with it and make sure you hit the enemy. It only lasts 10 seconds, that part of it, so you'll have to spam it quite a bit. But the safest way and easiest way is to keep up Flames of Oblivion. And I can't even swap it out now. Come on. Stop killing the target. There we go. So that's a very, very, very important set. Alongside that, of course, we want a decent amount of crit, stamina, and weapon damage. So we've got 2 crit bonuses, 1 stamina bonus, and of course, nearly 300 weapon damage. Bread and butter of most stamina sets. Very, very strong. 6 trait crafted set. Quite easy to make within a few weeks of playing the game. If not, most people can make it for you. Shout out in some local channels and hopefully you'll get it. So 2 Valkyn Scoria, 5 Hundins, 5 Swamp Raider. Swamp Raider jewelry, by the way, is from Shadowfen and it drops from the Dolmens. Now, CPs. This is very, very important. You will get stunned, so a little bit in reduction to break free is fine. You need that. 75 points in tenacity, so you have 14% return on your heavy attacks for your stamina gain. Very, very important. Do not waste the 25 points extra in here to make it 100 just for the sake of putting 100 in there. It's a really stupid idea because it will only give you 1% and you could have used those 25 points somewhere else. So make sure you go as far as 75 and not any further. Diminished returns are too high. 75 points into here for stamina recovery. Same applies here. Don't waste 25 points just to make it 100. We got 18 in here, which reduces our block break free cost. Just 18 points does that to us. You could have wasted them all in here for nothing. Use them somewhere else. 52 points into tumbling. Maelstrom Arena is a pain in the ass for stamina. You will need to dodge roll a lot, even when you're using this in normal content as well. 52 in tumbling gives us almost 20% reduction to our cost of our dodge rolls. Just remember, don't spam it every 2 seconds or so because there's a 4-second cooldown on it where it will cost you more if you over spam it. So just be careful of that. Nothing in here. 25 points into physical weapon expert. This is because we are doing a lot of light and heavy attacks and this is going to benefit our damage from those. Plus we get 40% from molten armaments if it's a full heavy. So these stack. Then single target hits. Flames of Oblivion is a single target hit. So are our light and heavy attacks. So we buffer that as well. We could put it all into here and get it to a straight 20%, but the extra 5% on top is absolutely fine because it then introduces a little bit more damage to Flames of Oblivion as well. 56 points in the Fermentage to give us 20% increase to our damage over time abilities. As you saw, we've got lots of them. 15% increase to our crit damage, so everything that crits is increased by a further 15% on top of the damage it already does for being a crit. 3k into physical penetration. This is very, very important, especially for group and trial situations where you can use this. It's absolutely fine, but you want to make sure that you've got a decent amount of physical penetration based before you start, so that when the buffs all kick in, they can all work together. And I'll put some points on the screen there to show you where you're going in most situations. Might eat 12% into here, which is 56 points, so that your poison and disease and physical damage are also increased as well. This you can put another 10 points in if you took it out of here or here or here, but then you'd lose penetration, you'd lose crit damage, or you'd lose dot damage. So it balances out quite well doing it like this. Failing that, you could take 10 out of here and pump that in to here. I think it was 64 or 66, I forget. Leveling Ironclad to reduce incoming single target damage effects. Now this is very, very important. First of all, we have 75 and 75 in here to give us a flat 14% reduction to both types of damage, physical and magicka based stuff. So poison, disease, physical, shock, fire, magic, and frost. Then dot reduction as well, so this is very, very nice. Now all hit and jump points, so you haven't got any points wasted. However, if you find yourself taking too much damage from projectiles, then you can drop some of the dot resist, or you can drop some of this, maybe take a couple points out of these, 10 out of here, 10 out of here, and put it into Ironclad so that those incoming direct attacks don't hit you quite so hard. But that's a personal choice, see how you get on, you might want to switch it around. 11 into quick recovery. This is for healing received, so your rapid strikes, or bloodthirst as it were, blood craze, and of course your vigor does increase its strength, the healing strength, by 3%, but above all I use it for this passive here, which is when you're in a group or trial situation, you probably will be resin people, and this reduces the damage you take while you're doing that by 15%. It's very, very strong, and in certain situations you can almost use it as a buff to kind of take less damage while picking someone up on purpose. And we're done there. Okay, rotation wise, if you're solo, why has he still got poison on him? This is very, very simple. You have a couple of different rotations. I mean, this is what I would use for Maelstrom. I would set it up this way. If you don't want to use the beast trap, that's absolutely fine. You can tactically use it, or you can dump it if it's too much for you, and just replace it with steel tornado, and every so often you can throw out executes at the enemy. Up to you. But I would definitely keep this on because this procs your set. It's very, very important. You won't get the poison damage if you don't have this active. This I use in so many situations to heal if I'm in trouble. If Vigor's already running as well, I'm taking additional damage. And this as well. It's a little bit of tactical play with these. You can put this on a target and just run away. It's fine. Options though, for later on. Basically, as far as rotation is concerned for this, it's very, very simple. Basically, this is what you have to do. Flames of Oblivion first. Make sure that you've got this on as well, because it's your main buff, you need it. Start off with volley. Beast trap first. Start off with volley. Light attack, poison injection, light attack, breath. Swap bars. Heavy attack, venom claw. Heavy attack, blood craze. Light attack, blood first. Light attack, flames of oblivion. Light attack, beast trap, swap. Start again. Now every second rotation, when you fire volley, poison injection, breath, block the breath really quickly so you don't have any animation. Then light attack, igneous, and swap. Or molten, it's called molten armaments. Very, very important. Now I'm going to show you how that works. You'll see me put in the molten armaments in it. It takes a lot of practice. Just go over that again if it doesn't make any sense to you the first time. But I'm going to show you how it works all together. Heavy venom, heavy blood craze, light blood first, light flames, light beast trap, swap. Volley, fire, breath, block, igneous, swap. Light venom, light blood craze, light rapid, light flame, light beast trap, swap again. Then you'll be using your ultimate. Same rotation while your ultimate is active, it will just passively do additional damage because it breaks through the penetration and really, really hurts. You have to use igneous or molten armaments, as it were, every 2 rotations to keep up your minor brutality. And that's as simple as that. That's all you have to do. Now, exactly the same rotation. This is for later on, more end game stuff. If you're in trials, dungeons, that kind of stuff. Even this is fine for trials and dungeons. But if you're already comfortable with most of the mechanics and you want to do a little bit more damage, switch Noxus Breath to here and get yourself Caltrops on here. This will do more damage. But for Maelstrom, use what I just said. Unless, of course, you're really comfortable with it. For trials and such, you can use this. You can have Noxus Breath if you want, but if there's enough debuff and going on, you don't necessarily need it. Although this does do poison damage, so this is very beneficial to your setup. However, if you're in trouble and you think you're going to need some extra mitigation, put Deadly Cloak on and use that instead. It goes in the same rotation, fires off exactly the same, but this is what you will do in that situation instead. The rotation that I've just shown you is slightly different now if you slot these skills. So you start the same way with your buffs on, Beast Trap, Volley. Now the breath isn't on the back bar, instead we're using Caltrops, so swap it. Heavy that, and then heavy breath, light flame, light beast trap. Fire. That's it. Exactly the same as the last one, but instead of the light with a rapid, it's a heavy with a flame. And as you can see, sustain's not an issue. It's absolutely fine. Heavy venom. Heavy blood craze, heavy breath, light, flame, light, beast trap, swap, fire, Caltrops, ulti. Heavy hit, heavy hit, heavy hit again, flame, beast trap, swap. Very, very simple. Every second rotation, keep up your weapon damage buff. And that's all you have to do. It's quite a slow rotation. I mean, there's a lot to take in to start with, but it's fairly slow in comparison to some of the others. For Maelstrom, this does work, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to start with because you'll be struggling with your sustain while you're running around a lot. I would recommend the previous rotation that I showed you. But once you get more advanced at it, I guess you'll be fine. I did that in the wrong order, but it doesn't matter. And as you can see, Vulcan Scoria fires all the time. It's very, very simple. Plenty of crits coming out. Constant uptime on the Swamp Raider set. It's on all the time without fail. You can see that buff never, ever runs out. And I have enough magic to keep all my buffs up and enough stamina to do whatever I want. Finishing the fight with 90% stamina is a bit nuts, to be fair. I can block in all situations. So, options, and then we're done. Basically, this here is for the max health and the proc damage. It's very, very nice. You can change this to Veladreth and all sorts of other stuff that you might be experiencing if you want, but just remember those are much, much harder dungeons and it's not something you're going to get to start with. Also, if you can't get Vulcan Scoria as a helmet, and I know some people can't because the dungeon's pretty rough, you have some other options. Krag is very, very easy to get, decent amount of penetration, and it has a damage over time effect to it, which is really, really nice. Doesn't give you max health, so be very careful of that, but it does have a decent amount of damage that comes from it. However, that's for more close quarter fights, but it will benefit you. Maelstrom, there you go. Arms come out and it fires. In Maelstrom, a bit difficult because things are all over the place, but it will help you in certain places. So that's up to you. Very easy to start with, easy to farm. Fungal Grotto 1, no problem at all. Other options are things like, have I got any on me? Probably not. Mofala. This is from Fungal Grotto 2. This comes with max stamina, so you'll go to about 40, maybe 41 stamina. I think you do actually go to 41. And basically for firing a heavy attack, it spawns a web under the target. Where is my shoulders? I'll show you how this works. This is very simple. Heavy attack. There's a web. It does damage to everyone in there. 1.1 a second. But depending on penetration and bonuses to your weapon damage. However, I wouldn't recommend this. In trials, if you like, fine, but it does exactly the same damage on an overall optimal DPS setup, if you like. But it doesn't give you the additional health that Vulcan Scoria does, even though it does the same amount of damage. It doesn't proc and definitely hit its target, because you could fire a heavy attack here, he dies, fire a heavy attack over here, and that's still running, so you can't do no damage to it with that proc. So it's only for still targets. Plus, something that isn't noted in the description, this poison damage here is not buffed by the Swamp Raider, so I dropped it, don't want to use it. I'd rather take the extra health from Vulcan Scoria and get the same amount of damage and make sure that I can always fire it off. Other options, of course, you can use Bloodspawn if you want the extra resist and a recovery if you're struggling, and of course you could use Storm Fist as well. That's very, very strong and gives you recovery as well. You can use Slime Claw for the crit and the 8% extra damage, but honestly the results are exactly the same. Every single one of these sets are exactly the same, except for Veladreth, which gives you a little bit more weapon damage. But this one is much, much better for survivability and definitely always hitting its target. Example, as long as I get to fire. It never misses. If you turn away, come on, don't let me down. Let's fire another couple dots at it. Did I put it on? Yeah, I did. It's not going to fire. Son of a bitch. Come on! There you go. You don't have to look at it. It will always fire. It never misses. Okay. Where are we? I think we should probably go into Maelstrom. Social group. Make sure it's on Vet. Change our skills to what I recommended for the Maelstrom. Also, one other option that you can do. You can change Molten Armaments out for Ignis Shields if you want. It gives you the same passive bonuses for activating it. Minor brutality, the stand back and all that kind of stuff, but it does give you major mending, so if you pop that and then a vigor, you get a bigger heal. Also, it coats your health in a shield based on your max health, so if you want to use this instead for a little bit of extra protection, you will lose damage on your heavy attacks, but you'll still get every other buff that it applies from the Earth and Heart passive, so it's a very, very good choice if you would like to use it, but it depends on how comfortable you are. Let's go in Maelstrom real quick and finish this up, because I've been rambling on forever and there's a lot of information to take in, especially if you're new to the Maelstrom and the DK. But I'm offering you a lot of choices here, so you've got a lot of things you can switch out and change if you want to. Okay, first of all, Maelstrom does save your progress based on the round you are on, the arena you are on. So if you're at the last round of Arena 1, it will bring you back in Arena 1. If you're at the last round on Arena 2, it will bring you back at the beginning of Arena 2 if you leave, all that kind of stuff. It saves the game unlike it did when it was first released. However, that's based on a condition. You must pick up this quest. If you don't pick it up and you leave, come back later, your progress will be wiped. So, make sure you get it. Should we put Steel Tornado on for this? That should be on the back bar when we go into Maelstrom. That setup was used for Trials and Dungeons. Where are you? We'll have that on there. I don't use caltrops too much in Maelstrom because it's really expensive. Do we fit it? Yes. No. Let's go as we are. Steel Tornado is a choice. You can swap Beast Trap for it if you want, but we'll leave that as a choice. Okay. Oh, I've got the wrong buff on. Come on, Zoe, sort your face out. There we go. Beast Trap down. Poison on. Leave him to it. You can execute him if you want, but you want to save your resources. Don't overspend them. He's going to die. But Scoria just killed him. Heavy attack is fine. You don't have to run around going mental. This ultimate will save your life because it's mental as hell. God mode, he can't do anything to you. That one's firing at you. Nothing. Hit me. Nothing. Good night. Keep this flame up all the time if you want the bonus damage from your poison. He's dead. You can finish him with a heavy attack if you want the sustain, but you don't actually have to finish him. Remember, these are damage over time abilities. Leave it. He's going to die. Don't sit there and spam them. That's when you'll struggle. And what I said about the rapid strikes or the bloodfest. I'll heal while hitting him. This as well. I'll heal while hitting him. Again, it's a boss. Drop your ulti. He can't kill you. Goes straight through his resists. Nothing he can do. Now, of course, I know that there are people in the game, lots of them actually, that have been practicing Maelstrom a lot, and they can go ultra squish. They know where all the spawns are, and they don't die, and all this kind of stuff. That's fine, but this is not that kind of build. This is for you to get used to it, and it's a very strong way to play a DK without being ultra squish and being a liability. And it can pump out capable DPS. The overall setup, the trial setup I showed you a little while ago, same gear, but you don't need to finish him, just he'll die. Oh, dot ran out. No, it didn't. He's dead. The trial setup, where the skills were placed and how I would optimize for that, can get an easy 35k DPS. 32 on your own if you're not practiced, 35 if you get a couple buffs, and pushing 37-ish in a trial, which is not too bad. I mean, that's not with full buffs either, that's just with standard spell power and a crusher. So, we're talking a decent amount of damage. It's not obviously the highest damage you can ever get, but it's definitely high enough to do all content. So if you're newer players that are a bit worried that you can't get in, you can. Just make sure your rotation's clean above all. He's going to move. This is when you pop your ulti. buff timers are so useful now. You can just get out of the red when your ulti falls off. You can stand in it the whole time. Then when it runs out, get out. And that's that. So, I mean, you can put Steel Tornado on if you want to finish stuff off early, if you're in a hurry, if you're trying to go for a speed run, all that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't recommend that yet. So you can have an enemy low health, pop Steel Tornado, he's dead, but just remember you just wasted 2k stamina when you could have just left him to it. It's up to you how you play it, but this is what I'd recommend. So hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring, hopefully you can understand that you don't have to go full glass cannon to perform, nor do you have to be copying every single other person who's wearing the same dress. You can use other stuff and this will perform very, very well indeed. For those of you that have used it in the past, hopefully you're pleased because none of the gear really changed. I know some of you had farmed it and golded it out and all that kind of stuff. This still works absolutely fine. Once again, thank you all very, very much for supporting. If you're not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support the channel outside of YouTube, there is a Patreon link, a Twitter page, a Facebook page, and of course the website xynodegaming.com, where all the written guides are as well, in the description. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and goodbye.